So formal. What is happening with your lighting there, Jen? I dig that. What do you got going on there?
I just added LED lights and I'm trying to see what color I appear. And right now we're using yellow and I think that I look reasonably normal, but I can't quite tell. And so I was flipping through them. Like they went up last night. So this is a test because before that, this was the view that you saw talking to me, which is not very good. So we're trying the light situation. And I figured with the 2 minutes to go, I might as well give you the disco mode and the test to see if anything looks slightly more normal, but I think illuminated in red is quite terrifying.
Things get a little weird with the lighting. It's fine. We'll run with it. All right, we've got 8 in the waiting room right now.
Your hair is so long, Chance. Oh my God.
Yeah, long in the back, not so much up top. All right, I'm kicking us off here. All right. Hello to everyone as you kind of join in. We'll give just a couple of minutes here as people bounce into our room here. Thank you for joining us. I'll give it 60 seconds and then we'll get things up and running. All right, why don't we go ahead and get started? So hello, everyone. My name is Chance Thompson, and I am playing board member for the Utah Recycling Alliance today, and happy to be hosting and kind of moderating our session here today to talk about upcycling, how to turn, so-called trash, as some may say, we disagree, into treasure. Couple of just housekeeping notes. We've got kind of an informal setting. I like where we're sitting with just kind of an intimate sort of group here. There's about 14 of us sitting in the room here, and I imagine we'll add in a few more as we go. If you can, please keep your audio muted as we go through. I am certainly happy to see people's faces, so feel free to go video on if you feel comfortable and would like to do so, but we're also happy to have you listening in. We will have plenty of room for discussion, interactivity. We're going to play a little bit of a kind of an upcycling game of sorts as we go through. So, buckle up and enjoy. But to kick us off here, I'd like to do some introductions with kind of our panel of upcycling wizards around the room here. So why don't we go ahead and start with you, Jen?
Howdy, I am Jen from Clever Octopus. We are a creative reuse center, so we gather things and we send them out to the community and we sell them to the public so you can have access to all the sorts of fun materials that you might not know that you needed. And sorry, I accidentally muted myself partway through that. Yeah, so that's who I am.
Thank you, Jen. Amy.
So I'm an adjunct professor at Salt Lake Community College, and I started teaching, brought sustainability and sustainable fashion to the fashion program at Salt Lake Community College in 2016. And I'm addicted to Clever Octopus. So thanks, Jen.
Perfect to have you two kick us off then. All right, and let's go over to the Salt Palace, and Mikkel, why don't you kick us off?
Hi, I'm Mikkel. I work for the Salt Palace. Like Chance said, I am our sustainable events coordinator. So I'm the one that helps our event clients as they come into our building plan and implement sustainability into their event.
And Nick.
Hey guys, my name is Nick Zacchio and I am the Zero Waste Coordinator at the Salt Palace Convention Center. My role started out as a donations coordinator, donating materials that was left behind from conventions.
Yep, Jen, definitely in that partnership for sure. Okay, well, thank you everyone. So to kick us off, I want to just set the stage with a couple of definitions that I think will be guiding principles for us through this conversation. So of course, first and foremost, what is upcycling? I have a feeling that a few of you in our audience today know already, but to a more formal definition, it is the reuse of discarded objects or materials in such a way that creates a product of higher quality or value that is higher than the original material that it was. I am actually right now wearing an upcycled suit created by our wonderful Amy here, and I think worth more than just a discarded trade show banner. And then the other thing that I want to define for the group is something to think about that upcycling really leans into is this idea of circularity. And this is becoming kind of a new trendy thing in the space of sustainability. And at a high level, creating a circular economy is a systematic approach to economic development that allows us to benefit businesses, society, environment. It's really in contrast to this more take, make, and waste approach that we seem to have and what is kind of now called our linear economy. And it is allowing us to put things back into the systems or keep them inside the systems that they exist in. There's really kind of three principles to circularity, and I think that upcycling checks all of the boxes. You have designs out waste and pollution, it keeps products and materials in use, and it regenerates natural systems. So it allows us to be more efficient as we use product and take less from our planet, which we know we all need to be better about doing. Okay, so why is upcycling circular? Well, we're gonna show you. So to kick us off, we're going to play a little bit of a game. So we will throw it to each one of our audience or our panelist participants here to share some examples of material before it was upcycled and material after it was upcycled. So what we'll do is we'll show you a picture of the material in its more raw form or original form, and then we'll ask you to throw into the chat function your guesses as to what they created with it. And then of course they will tell their stories. If anybody wants to unmute and kind of come onto the stage and speak, I'm more than happy to do that. I will of course warn you that we are recording the session, so anything you do there will be on the final recording, but you're also more than welcome to do it in the chat. So why don't we start with, let's start with Jen. And I'm gonna pull up your, as I show up the screen. All right. So we have Ethernet cable, Cat5 cable of sorts,
Cat5
something
Ethernet
of the
cable.
like, yes?
Yep. This is one that
All right.
I spied the upcycling. This was not actually my work. This is my dad's work. So this tells you where I come from. But yeah, do you have any guesses on what this could be? This is a hard one. This is a pretty far out there one. And I was really amused when I saw it. Ooh, braided pot holders. That's so good. I did not think of that, but I like that. I would have to test the heat resistance of the sheathing, but like, I'm really into that idea. Wire jewelry basket. See, those are really obvious. This is way more ridiculous than that. Those are all great reuses of this material, by the way. Just like, yeah, it came from a really silly take. Anybody else got any guesses? No? Chance. Oh,
straws.
clothesline.
Clothesline.
Straws. Oh, straws is a good guess. Picture frame. Interesting. I like it. I mean, you're giving me good ideas here. This stuff's a dime a
And
dozen.
we will be capturing the chat for sure, so we can
Yeah.
keep some of these ideas.
Macrame holder for plant. I like it. Water siphoning. Fascinating. Ooh, an irrigation system would have been very cool. Okay.
All right, I
Bead
think,
curtain.
well, bead curtain cut up. All right, well,
Like-
shall we show them, Jen?
Let's take a look. All right, so my dad needed a fence to really indicate to folks wandering around in the rural East Texas that they should definitely not cross this line. If you take a look at this particular picture, it is made out of a piece of angle iron, some actual legit fence pieces, electric fence pieces, and this Cat5 cable, which the joke here is that not only is it not actually an electric fence, is that it could not be an electric fence because you couldn't run that kind of electricity through this cable. But he wanted a really high visibility line to make sure that the passersby would not pass through here. So he chose this piece of Cat5 cable that we certainly don't use anymore to make sure that it was extremely visible. And I thought it was a really silly take on reuse and upcycling.
Fantastic. So any particular, challenges with this one? This one is, it's a little easier to do, but any particular things that were a challenge to putting this together?
I mean, there's not even any internet out at this farmhouse we've got here. So I'm not sure how the Cat5 cable landed there, but we definitely didn't use it there. And like last time, right, exactly, totally. Average person wouldn't know it was electrified. Yeah, if you don't know anything about an electric fence, you'd just be like, oh my goodness, it's yellow, it's extra scary. The main challenges I think were just like finding all the scraps and assembling something that looked like an electric fence and then putting a lot of scary signs on there.
So, and this one, probably not a lot of particular skills, right? No soldering or sewing or stitching or anything like that.
No
Pretty
soldering,
easy, right?
no sewing. You can see that he just tied a regular knot in the cable. He didn't even bother to like properly bind it or anyway.
So Clever Octopus is going to launch a line of building people fences out of Cat5. Yeah,
Yep,
I assume.
absolutely. And really, I'm sure that if we tried, we could get infinite miles of Cat5 cable as folks are pulling it out because everything is wireless at this point. I'm sure that we could source tons of it. See, I knew you would. I knew y'all would. That's why I never want to talk about Cat5 cable because I'm just terrified at the overwhelm. I got to have like a real plan for it.
I think Mikkel and Nick can tell stories about what happens when you pathway for material reuse, you start to get a whole lot of that type of material. So we can talk about that a little bit actually, because that's part of creating a circular and upcycling economy. There are some things to think about. Yeah, Nick, I just saw we've got plenty at the Salt Palace, right?
Yeah.
All right. So let's shift over, and I'm sure we'll circle back around to you, Jen, for more to come. But why don't we shift over to you, Amy? So I'm going to take the screen share off so I don't accidentally give it away here, what we got going on. And we will tell the story of the suit that Amy made for me as well, but we'll hold on that for a minute. All right, screen coming back up.
So I've also worked with Salt Palace for a few years now. So I worked with Mikkel and Nick and Chance. They've given me some great materials over the years. I don't know what doTERRA convention this came from, but it's been a minute since we've had that one. It's been sitting in my garage for at least a couple of years. Granted that my passion is for clothing, I'm imagining you guys could come up with a number of different things. So anybody want to guess what I made? It's a, you know what, to be honest, I don't know if it's, I didn't test synthetic. I don't know if it's polyester or nylon, to be honest, but it's a really stable knitted fabric. So backpack, rucksack, those are good. Decoupage art, also good. Sorry if I missed some of the other ones that popped up before.
Collage art. Homemade airplane wings. Should
Offhand, I
make
think
one
it's
of those flight suits out of it.
yeah.
That, right, jump out of a plane and like fly through the crazy people.
Yeah, for reference on the size of this thing, it's about 4 feet by 8 feet, and it's double sided. So technically, it's like 8 by 16 feet worth of fabric there. Waterproof jacket. I don't know that this one's waterproof, but you could definitely Scotch guard it. But that's actually, I don't know, ding, 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 we got a winner. It's not waterproof, but
All right, shall we
didn't make
slip
a jacket out of this one.
throw it
Yeah.
up? There we go.
So there it is. I am actually kind of anal about like matching fabrics, and this has been just so much fun to not worry about color, like kind of like that color blocking idea behind it, and not worrying about like having every piece, you know, everything's on grain and everything's sewn the correct way, so to speak. But the collar is not from the material. That's actually from a shirt that I got at the DI. If you look at the very bottom of the ribbing around the bottom, yeah, where Chance is putting the cursor, there's actually a tag from the shirt that I got at the DI. So I didn't use the fabric around the cuffs and the collar and the waist because it's not stretchy enough. It's a knit, but it's very stable. It doesn't stretch much. So thank you guys for the compliments. It's a really fun jacket, and I actually want to make a bunch more.
So, Amy, of course, skills. You have some, right? What do you think is a good place for people to start, and certainly what skills are needed here? Yeah.
So sure, I'll plug Salt Lake Community College and the Fashion Institute at Salt Lake Community College. I love teaching there. I went to Utah State for a degree in fashion there, but I have to say that Salt Lake Community College far surpasses my education at Utah State. The classes and things that you can take there are amazing, and we have all sorts of fun. Like, in addition to all the materials that we get from the Salt Palace, we also have a room of donations of fabric. So we get to do a lot of upcycling projects there. And luckily I was fortunate to learn how to sew at an early age, but it's never too late. So
I think this is certainly an example of something that has become more valuable, right? I mean, this is it's well made, right? I could see this hanging on a hanger in a pretty, you know, trendy sort of clothing store, right? So it's very well done. And I think the value that it creates is a lot more than just again, discarded trade show banner, or even, as you know, trade show banners are kind of expensive, but they probably shouldn't be as expensive as they are, and they're not nearly as valuable to someone, I think, as a well-made jacket like this. So very, very cool.
thank you. Yeah, somebody actually just mentioned making tents for homeless, and that's actually one of the partners at the Salt Palace is somebody that I introduced to them. And that's actually something that they do with some of the banners. So it's a great idea, and it's actually something that some of the partners at Salt Palace are doing to help homeless and refugees with all this extra material. So
fantastic. Well, that's a pretty good segue, I think, to Nick and Mikkel. So I'd ask, I think, to start, if you two want to give a little bit of an overview of what the Salt Palace is and what this program is that these two keep referencing. You know, tell yourselves a little bit and talk a little bit about what the community partner program is and how it works.
Sure. Okay, so I actually am slightly new to this program that Chance actually helped start in 2017, and the program surrounded collection of the materials that was left behind from those conventions that come to town, and taking the material and diverting it from the landfill. And so my role starting out was working with community partners that we've, you know, been able to build relationships with, like Jen and Amy, and work with them on finding them materials that they could utilize for their businesses, for their 501c3s, their programs, and handing it off to them and just diverting it from the landfill. So we worked, when I started, we were with about 90 nonprofits, And we were taking in quite a bit of material. In fact, in 2019, when I really got started, we diverted over 179,000 pounds of material from the convention center.
Fantastic. Every time I hear the impact, it's just good vibes. Mikkel, anything you want to add there before we throw up an example?
No, I think Nick explained the program really well, but I will add our partners are incredibly creative. I am not near that creative, and I'm always thrilled to see what's happened with the materials after our events, because I look at it and I can't quite imagine all of the different purposes. And then you give it to one of our many creative community partners, like the ones we have here, Jen and Amy, and they're just like magic, literal wizards. I will let them be wizards. I'm not sure I'm a wizard, but they definitely are.
Well, there's every part of this circular partnership here. It seems to play a valuable role. So I think you're all in good company here. All right, well, and I see you're starting off, throw up our sample. So this is our before picture. So guess away. And Nick and Mikkel, do you want to explain what they're seeing here, what those are?
Yeah, so what you're seeing here is Salt Palace staff and these little, like that white board that's being held by the guy in the middle is a bunch of carpet samples. So in 2017, we had a flooring show, and with flooring comes carpet samples on boards like this, and we ended up with well over 4,000 of these squares. So what do you think one of our wonderful partners turned these carpet samples into?
Cat trees, I like that. Doll houses. We've got a second on the cat trees, yep.
Larger
Oh, hey,
area
David.
rugs, I like that too.
Like a collage-y sort of area rug, that would be interesting.
Let's give them a hint too. If you guys have been into the Salt Palace, you have seen the results.
Board
Yeah, I'd be
games,
curious if anybody out in the audience
soundproof
has actually seen it.
installations. All good
Soundproofing.
ideas.
Art, getting close. Pixel type wall art. Okay, well that's right on the, that's kind of hitting the ringer there.
It is.
Well, shall we show them? All right.
This is a mosaic of Martha Hughes Cannon, who's the first woman state senator in US history. She was actually running against her husband and beat him, so good on her. And this was created by one of our community partners, a local artist, Chad Farms. Sorry, not Farms. Chance, this actually helped Chad get a internship somewhere, didn't it?
A fellowship, yeah. So he was able to get, and I think he would have completed this, would have been last summer, I think, a fellowship in Glacier National Park as an artist. So he got to live in the park, create art for the park. It sounds like my dream. Glacier is my home. I'm from Montana, so I was very excited when he got this. But it was Monumental Maddie and the ability to create kind of a living example of sustainability that really inspired the selection committee and brought him into the park. So we might have to bring him on at some point to share that experience, because it would probably be pretty cool. So yeah, anything else to add about Maddie?
Just that it's a great example, and I love that it's, like Nick mentioned, it's in the Salt Palace. It's actually right by the main tower as you walk in, those main doors. And I love that we can have such a great example within our facility that we can show off to clients, attendees, staff. It's a really inspiring story, and it's great to have an example just right there that everyone can see. How large is it? Oh boy, I don't know the answer to that. Chance, do you know? You know a lot of weird
I
stuff
do.
about Maddie. You might know.
I do still. Well, I love Maddie. It's one of my favorite things that I've ever like been a part of. So a couple of things I'd tie into with Maddie. So Maddie is 20 feet by 20 feet. So it's quite large. You have to step quite back from it. Yeah, like 20 foot square. Yep. So you have to get a pretty decent perspective away from it. And what's cool about it is you walk in that entrance, people will kind of notice it, but they're too close to it and they're like, whoa, and then they'll step back and get their perspective on it. And it's really quite cool. The other thing that I would highlight about Maddie is we talk about this idea of circular partnership. So, you know, just on this call with the Salt Palace, Clever Octopus, and Amy and Salt Lake and Sustainable Fashion Community College demonstrates circularity. This creates a really circular system to the way the Salt Palace operates. So you have, of course, a trade show comes in, they generate that extra material. The program donates it out to the community and sets up community partnership of an artist that can create something compelling. The piece comes back into the building and inspires future attendees and future trade shows to see what sustainability has brought to life, and the whole thing kind of just spins around and around and around. And it also is given a way for Mikkel and Nick and the operation at the Salt Palace to stay connected to this client that takes a show off to other cities and things like that. So it's a very, very cool thing. And we have a question, actually, why don't we address, is Salt Palace a donated community facility or a rented space? Mikkel, do you want to respond to that?
Rented space, I think, is the answer to that question. But if you're wanting to rent out space or you're needing space for something, our sales team can help you out with that and help you figure out what you need and what can help you fulfill those needs.
And there is some opportunity for like nonprofits and things to get space discounts and things like that too. Is that right?
Yes, there are some opportunities there. Like I said, you'll need to work with our sales team, but also feel free to include me in that and I can help that process along.
Would you feel comfortable sending Teresa contact information for you, Mikkel?
Yeah, I'll just throw my email.
Specific.
Yeah, I was actually going to say I'll just throw my email in the chat. So feel free to reach out.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, we've got a couple of samples from the Salt Palace. So why don't we, while Mikkel does that, Nick, we'll move to our next one. Let's see.
Okay, this picture is hard to understand what you're looking at, but let me just explain. One of the funnest parts of my job is collecting materials from these big conventions. And these conventions have unique and very diverse setups and displays. And what you see here are giant styrofoam hills, and they are hills that were meant to look like grassy knolls. I'm going to give you guys opportunities to understand what this became, but I will tell you there was 11 of them.
All right, guess away, chat.
Indoor miniature golf, that's a good idea. Movie set, okay. Close.
More cat trees. The cats are looking good in the upcycling game, I would say.
11 Grinch costumes. If you would have hit the nail on the head with that one, then.
I really like that option though.
Does that mean Haley's a Grinch? Is that what we're seeing?
No, just that I think that's a fabulous idea for these green piles of foam.
Let me also just add that each hill weighed 30 pounds. 30 pounds of styrofoam.
All right, giant pea pods. I like that too. All right.
All right, nobody got it. No surprise there. So what you're looking at here are pumpkin houses that were made for a local event called Pumpkin Nights from one of our community partners, Bigsley. And I will tell you this, that Amy Powell was also a receiver of one of these or two of these grassy knolls. For her, I think it was a Harry Potter thing you were using that for. Am I correct?
So we actually ended up using them for a cosplay for a cause, and we made them into, I'm trying to find a picture of them. We made them into cat houses. We
Oh, cats, great.
cut them in half, and it was like a hobbit house. It was like a little dome-shaped hobbit hole for a cat.
So the theme definitely is houses for these for whatever reason, but I will tell you that we also donated these to Ben Lomond High School and Highland Junior High. So we were able to get rid of 11 of these in short order, which is pretty amazing considering how strange they are. They do look really cool on the top of a minivan, as I will tell you. We strapped that on a few cars, so.
I got so many strange looks downtown Salt Lake City with this huge clamshell thing on the top of my mini.
Fantastic. Okay. I think that the cats, we have more references about cats. I think we need to launch some sort of like upcycling partnership with the Humane Society or something, right? That seems like an appropriate. Jen, yeah, are you already thinking along these lines? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, so I'm going to put you kind of on deck here, Jen, cue you up if you want to start pulling together some of your Instagram content to show. While you do that, I will talk a little bit about this silly green suit that I'm wearing. There are orange pants that you haven't seen yet, so I will show those as well. Give me a second here. So back in what, 2018, I think it was, we had a trade show in the convention center called Connect Marketplace, and they got really excited about sustainability and partnering with us. And they had a kind of a actual space set up in the middle of their trade show floor that was dedicated to demonstrating sustainability and like service projects for impact. And actually, oh, Jen jumped in. Why don't we go to you with your Instagram first? We'll circle back. So teaser on the suit. Or I can steal the screen share back from you. Get off my screen. How about that? There we go.
I lost the mute button because I had too many things shared. Sorry about that. Too many windows, and that's with most of them to the side. Go ahead and finish what you're up to.
I am stealing the stage back from you, friend. All right. And then I will pass it to you. Okay, so this show is super into sustainability, right? So they set up this little space where there were a bunch of banners around different types of sustainable service projects. So some were like food rescue, some were building bracelets for cancer patients at Huntsman. So just some really cool things. And what I'm wearing is some of the banners that were built out of that. So let me show you the banners first. Okay, so this is a picture I'm going to show you of someone else wearing another one, which is a dress, much more elegant than my look here, I would say. So we'll show that in a second. So that is a banner that was used, and the jacket that I'm now wearing. Okay, so that's without the jacket. You can see the vest, and then you can see the beautiful dress with my wonderful friend Mariella, who works in the events industry as a sustainability champion. And of course, my orange pants. And not to make this too awkward or weird, but I do have sustainable development goals on my rear end, which I think I have a picture of. Yeah, there you go. And she has them on the back of her dress as well. So if you don't know the sustainable development goals, I'll put a link to it in the chat here once I shift over to Jen to share some of her content. Very cool initiative, global initiative defining what sustainability is and the different areas that it impacts. So I think I've got goal number 4, I believe it is, with good health and well-being, 16, which is peace, justice, and strong institutions. And strong institutions, I think, are something huge in the idea of creating a circular economy. And then Mariella is wearing responsible production, very fitting goal for the conversation we're having here, as well as climate action, which is, of course, a fantastic and place of action. So that is the suit. And I also, I don't know if you saw it in there, but I'm wearing a tie for quality education too, which I also feel appropriate today. All right. Okay, Jen, I'm willing to cede the platform to you now.
Okay, I'll start by unmuting and then I'll share my screen so I can keep track of all the details. All right, so most of what I've got to share and show, in addition to what we had for our question bit, was a bunch of little tiny one-off projects of finding something that's a small treasure and reclaiming it for something bigger and better. Most of what I do for my own projects these days is really small scale recycling and upcycling, because what I do for my work is massive scale of building the octopus and growing programs and making things happen on a regional scale. So, but I've got a few pictures here that I can share with you. So the first one is my doorbell. We are several doors beyond this door at this point. They're all recycled, reclaimed doors. But I found this really beautiful xylophone at the DI, you know, for $1, and it looked sad. So I hung a wooden spoon with it, and now we've got a blade to ring a doorbell. No power required. I didn't have to wire anything up, and that was, it seemed to be making it a lot more valuable since it was already kind of a sad little xylophone. Several years ago, I created a trellis out of bike wheels that were destined for the landfill / metal recycling. So sure, we could say that a better use of them would be to melt them down and reclaim the metal. But in the meantime, it's a nice place for things to grow in my garden. So that's kind of fun. This was a class many years ago making map flowers. So using old maps that are already worn out, torn up, you can see actually right in this region that there's a fold or a crease or a damaged spot in that map, but it worked out beautifully for making cool flowers. So again, small scale stuff. This one is foam scraps. You chopped them up with scissors. It was a class that I was teaching. We had a bunch of waste foam laying around, and we chopped them with scissors until we got the textures we wanted. And we colored them with Sharpies and made very silly evil vegetable ornaments. And it was a grand old time for, you know, elementary and middle school kids getting to chop and make a giant fluffy mess of snowy foam everywhere. And our hands were all the colors by the time you're done touching it. This was a product that I made for Art Market a few years ago out of upholstery samples. We had just started collecting upholstery samples from a few corporate donors, and at this point we collect a lot of upholstery samples, and folks are always kind of baffled what to do with them. So I put together a demo, and then I started putting together a handful of demos, and we had all of these soft t-shirt offcut bits from a clothing manufacturer. It was definitely too small to sew any clothes out of, but it was, you know, nice texture. So I shoved each of these full of 40, 50, 60 pounds of little bits of offcut scrap. And what came out of them are these really nice, heavy, durable ottomans you can actually sit on. They don't collapse under your weight. You can kick them, you can trip over them, that you just won't fall off of them. They sold immediately. So that was kind of fun. Do we have any more pictures of them? Oh yeah. Close-up seams, or at least 40 pounds in them, and really gorgeous fabrics, because that's what you get when you get upholstery samples. You get stuff that would have sold for $80, $200, somewhere in that range. And you get to use them exactly as much as you need for your project. So that's kind of a fun project that we did. This was a handful of reclaimed wood scrap that became these wall vases. So they are glass insulators that came from an electrical supply company or a sign supply company. These are from Neon Lights, but this is not how neon lights are insulated anymore. So nobody uses the glass insulators, and they make these really cute little wall cups. Let's see, other fun things.
You can see Jen is an endless source of upcycling creativity, it seems.
Most of what's happened
Any last
lately.
ones you want to share before we go?
Yeah, this one I'm really proud of actually. So my sad snow boots had a crack in the heel of both of them. And everything I tried to do, I tried to get them warranted. I tried to get them repaired. Nobody would do anything about it. And Sorrel's like, we'll give you a coupon for making a discount on your next purchase. And I was like, everything but the heel of this boot is fine. And unfortunately, that's kind of critical for waterproofing. And so the last one that I want to share is that I managed to sand texture back into the rubber of my boots, because if you see right there, it does say natural rubber. And I was like, all right, we're going to give this a shot. Sanded texture, added vulcanizing fluid, the stuff that you use for making bike patches, and I fixed them with a worn out inner tube. And now they're brand new.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. What I'd like to do now is we'll keep talking as a panel here, but while we do, queue up the audience if there's anybody that wants to come up and share an upcycling story of their own. If you do, just raise your hand and we'll bring you up on with us here. So while people consider that, if you have any stories you want to share, question for each of our panelists here, and I'm going to start with you, Nick. What does upcycling mean to you?
Okay, well, I sat on this one for a while. It's kind of taken over my whole life since I moved here a year and a half ago. I went a little deep on it. For me, upcycling isn't just so much about materials, even though that's what we talk about it for. I put, in my head, I think upcycling means more to me than just being sustainable or being a good recycler. I think upcycling is an integral part of our human condition, and it identifies value and purpose for us as individuals and creates opportunities to help us grow and to identify not just the value of the material around us, but also may help us to identify our own personal value as well. So it's the premise of not just discarding material, but same as just discarding ourselves, creating value out of how we feel. So it's very deep, but I sat on it for a while for that reason.
Fantastic. Okay. Before I go to another one of our panel members, I do see somebody raise their hand. For some reason, it's not showing me who you are, so I will just open the floor to you. So if you want to unmute, feel free to come on video if you feel comfortable and share your upcycling story. And if you have visuals, we might be able to accommodate that too. Who are you, mystery hand waver?
I'm making twine out of scraps of fabric. This was a sari, an old sari that's been cut up, but it's really strong, and I'm going to make maybe a basket or something out of it, weave that. And then I've been making little purses and things out of Capri Sun. My husband works for Easter, and the people that are coming to Easter seals drink these still a lot for their lunches. So we save them, and I make things out of them.
Fantastic. Thank you. I think it's Janelle. Thank you. Anyone else while we're here? Does anybody else want to come up and share an example? What I love about Janelle's is it's showing a couple of different layers, right? With like the thread, right? Bringing it, into the thread form and then upcycling that into something. Very cool. Anybody else? Okay. Oh, yeah, Dawn. Yes, please. Hello.
I don't see a way to raise my hand on the thing, but this is a case I made for my calculator.
Fantastic. And what's it made out of?
Just stuff that my mom had in her sewing room, like little pieces.
Fantastic. I assume you have like a fancy T9, all the bells and whistles sort of graphic calculator, yes?
Yeah.
Nice. That was one of my favorite things. It was one of my best companions as a high schooler back in the day. I'm not afraid to admit it. I love it. Fantastic. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Yeah, Jolie, the Capri Sun bag's very cool. All right. Okay. Mikkel, why don't we go over to you to question land here. What does upcycling mean to you?
While not as deep as Nick has, upcycling for me is just being able to find new life for things, giving them, that second chance. And just by doing that, by finding ways to use them that are new or different and hopefully of more value than they were before. I also like that it's thrifty. I like saving money. I mean, who doesn't? I like that I can take the things from that I have that I'm like, I don't know what to do with this anymore. I definitely can't use it as this, but then finding a new way to use it so I can continue using that and not have to go shopping to find a new product and buy a new product because I already have something that will work. And I love that about upcycling. And in the right hands, like our wonderful partners, sometimes it can even make you money and create jobs.
Fantastic. Okay. Amy, what about you? I know upcycling means something to you. I've seen your Harry Potter parties. I tell you what, she's a wizard for sure. Or a witch, I guess, in the Harry Potter world, more appropriate, I guess.
Well, yeah, I mean, after Nick, there's not really anything I can say that is more eloquent than that. That was deep and thoughtful and spot on. So yeah, for me, it's just restoring usefulness to an item. Like all of those textile banners that I've received over the years from the Salt Palace, those serve no function anymore. They really would just be sent to landfill and nobody would miss them. So being able to make something useful out of them it really is magic. I know that sounds like, dorky and talking about wizards and witches, but it is the most magical thing that I can do. And I was just so inspired by everybody at the Salt Palace and their state of mind of, saving everything and not just taking it to landfill. So all of the events that I've planned over the years in coordination with Salt Lake Community College or just other community partners, 95% of our materials that we use are recycled or upcycled, or sometimes just, like not only from Salt Palace, but I'm a big dumpster diver. So sometimes it's literally straight out of the garbage. So, and I found it was just on my, here's the hobbit hole in the cat. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Yeah.
There's one of them. So to Dawn and Teresa, tiny fabric scraps are kind of like the bane of my existence. So any project that you can come up with tiny fabric scraps, those are awesome. The cording and the calculator holder, those are awesome.
Fantastic. And don't you dare call Harry Potter dorky. I wish I had polling function, I would poll the audience on who loves Harry Potter, because I bet we'd have more winners than not. And I will fight you if you disagree with me. All right, Jen, what about you? What does upcycling mean to you?
Well, so the fence repair for my dad. My dad grew up in Cuba, a place where you didn't get things if you needed them. You had to hold on to all your stuff and you had to make sure that stuff continued to work. And so it meant that he did and continues to still have massive quantities of very, very highly organized pieces, parts to be used to solve a problem later on. And so I think upcycling big picture is a lot of his experiences. And then also my mom grew up on a farm in East Texas. So like lots of conservation and thrift in terms of like making sure that you can be self-sustaining and finding new uses for the stuff that you already have, because you probably have stuff and it's probably not serving you the best right now. And sometimes it goes into the archive for a while, but You know, in 40 years, you might just need that radio knob from your El Camino to make the next thing work. And that's a real thing. We actually do have radio knobs from the El Camino still. So yeah, I think it's a lot about finding and sustainability among your own functioning in your own life, like just making your world better, your own world better, which helps make the bigger picture world better.
Something I'll say just to talk up Clever Octopus a little bit here is we talk about this idea of creating a more circular economy, right? A more recycled sort of economy. Clever Octopus is filling a really important void there, where they're acting as a place to go looking for materials, right? You know, not everybody has a garage or storage or things to or space, you know, in their home if they live in an apartment downtown Salt Lake or something, right? With the ability to hold on to everything. Clever Octopus is doing that. But I also would really lean into everyone here, you know, consider what you throw away, right? It's really important to think about the reuse that it might have. And if you don't have the ability to keep it yourself and you know, don't want to be hoarding too heavily, which of course there's certainly a good argument for that being a sustainable attribute too, right? Find places to send it, right? That can leverage this. And I think that Clever Octopus's model is one that we all need to share and lean into other cities, other places to build things like this. And I don't know what your expansion plans are there, CO, but I think that there's an opportunity at some point. And I know I'd certainly be willing to give that a kick and help, because what you're doing is really, really valuable. And it's kind of closing a loop where there's a loop to be closed when it comes to a society that throws things away far too often.
For sure.
So well done. Thank you.
It's definitely in the works or somewhere along the way, and we'll definitely talk about it later.
I just wanted to chime in and say thank you, Clever Octopus, for making me not a hoarder, because I want to save everything, but I know that I personally can't upcycle all of it. So somebody else had, Teresa had talked about somebody, you know, families who lived through the Great Depression, you know, that didn't throw anything away. And that's so true. I inherited my grandmother's sewing, and she would save little pieces of thread like this big, wrapped around pieces of newspaper. And I think that's where that resourcefulness and that kind of pioneer spirit of making it work came from. So thanks for mentioning that.
Okay, why don't we, I think we've got time for maybe one more show and tell. Salt Palace, I know, I think we've got another one queued up for you all. So let me grab, oh yeah, this is one that I'd never seen this one before. Love this. So let's throw it up here. Okay, I'll allow one of you two to explain what they're looking at here.
Sure. So what you guys see here is commonly used as signboard in convention centers, and it's called Sintra board or foam core board, mixed plastic, styrofoam signage, corrugated cardboard. These things are generally printed in mass for the attendees, and we were doing some math on it, and roughly 7,000 pounds of Sintra board gets left behind from large conventions every year. So what you see is a collection of that Sintra board from one show that we had. It is just 279 pounds worth, but that's still quite a bit. And we donate it. What do we think we donate it for? How do you think people utilize it once it's donated? Any ideas, guesses? I'm sure you guys could come up with some. And don't say cats. No, nothing with cats.
Tiny homes. I love that suggestion.
Block printing, okay. Shingles for sheds, that's new. And I've heard of a lot of unique ideas. Protest signs. I don't know how that would go.
Yes, scratching boards for cats. That's the perfect suggestion.
Can't escape the cats, Nick.
Protest sign seems to be winning at this point.
This is America. Yeah, let's go. I'm in. I think so. I see some climate action protest signs in our future here.
That would be very fitting. Wall installation. So I can tell you, I do know of a community partner who utilized some thicker Sintra board to use for wall insulation. So, I mean, all of these ideas could work.
Fantastic. Okay, shall we
Mm.
show them, Nick?
Yes, in this particular instance, one of our greatest community partners, next to Jen and Amy, the Mandalorian Mercs, they utilize the Sintra to make armor for their Star Wars crew, and they actually have a booth for FanX every year. So thanks to FanX, we're able to give them the signboard from one convention to the next, and it's a perfect example of the circular model in my mind.
Fantastic. Okay, we'll leave that there with our examples. So we'll do a kind of a final wrap up here with a question to each of our panelists here. And while they're doing that, I'm going to just start blasting some links into the chat for everybody. You know, certainly would encourage everyone to go to the Utah Recycling Alliance's website and explore some of our content. We've got some great blogs and some events like these that you can tap into and enjoy the Trash Talk series from months past. This will be a continuing monthly series, and we're very excited to see our participants that have joined us today. And thank you to those that were you know, courageous enough to jump up on stage with us and share some examples. And so I will throw it to our wonderful upcycling wizards, witches, whatever, you know, magical term you want to apply to them. Because the talent here is immense. And, you know, Mikkel, I know you said you're not super creative. I would disagree, but I would also say, you know, it takes a village to set this up in a way that's impactful. And so this partnership that's on display between, you know, the Recycling Alliance here and convening everybody, the Salt Palace, putting materials out into the community, and folks like Amy and, you know, teaching Salt Lake City Community College sustainable fashion, and Jen and Clever Octopus bringing it into life in an entirely amazing way, is really helping us turn Salt Lake into a sustainable city in and of itself and a sustainable community. So to close, what would your advice as our kind of experts here, what would be your advice to everyone in the audience? Where to start, how to engage with upcycling? What's your biggest piece of advice to folks? And I will start with, let's start with Amy.
So I feel like a lot of people, once they have the idea, they are afraid to execute it because they're afraid they're going to ruin, you know, whatever they're going to turn into a Debbie downcycling project instead of upcycled. But mostly what I have to say is just, I tell my students that are like, oh, I don't know how to go about executing this. I say, well, are you using it now? Is it useful now? And if not, whatever you're going to do to it, it's not precious, and you're going to make it better. Even if you're feeling hesitant about cutting into, you know, specific to fashion in this case, if you do make a mistake, you're learning. It's a learning experience. There is a learning curve with upcycling because there's so many different materials that you can work with. So don't be too difficult, or don't be too hard on yourself, because it is kind of a difficult thing to start into. But once you get a taste of it, you just won't ever go back.
Fantastic. Nick.
Okay, so I think my biggest advice I could give anybody is to just try and create value. What does it mean to you? What is the value of the material? What do you need in your life? How can this accommodate what you need in your life? And so value creation is what I would try and ask you to have. When you see an item on, you know, that's been discarded, think, how can this be someone else's treasure? Just create some worth out of it rather than looking at it as nothing.
Excellent. Okay, Jen.
I was just adding in the chat actually, and I will send it in a second. The corollary to what Amy's saying is it's not dead yet. So once you've found it and you're not sure what to do with it, but you're not using it right now, so like, what is it going to become? Rather than discarding something that's totally functional, but like you don't know what to do with it, it's not dead yet. Like you can still keep making with something. You can keep fixing. You can keep repairing. You can keep rebuilding, even if in its current state it's not the best. But also related to that is to know when to stop. If it's just like completely toast and you're just making trash, then don't put your energy into that.
Well, if it makes anybody feel any better, I have a theory that eventually we'll be digging up our landfills and turning them into some sort of clean energy source for all us.
Yeah.
So, you know, sometimes something does just have to get thrown away, but
Yeah.
you know, rarely if
Yeah.
we're talented, right?
I'll
Okay.
launch a landfill mining business at some point.
Okay, well, you and I have a lot of collaborations to discuss,
A lot of
so,
work to do.
okay. All right. Mikkel.
Utilize your resources, I think, is the advice I would give. And I don't just mean like the materials and stuff that you have at home. I mean like Google and the wonderful organizations in your community like Clever Octopus that can help teach you how to use these materials in a different way you may not have thought of. I've said it, I'm not the most creative, but Google is my friend. Anything I'm not sure what to do with, I just Google it, and up comes who knows how many suggestions, because I don't make it through all of them, you know. So even if you're not super creative, you can utilize your resources to start gaining those skills and creativity to not need to utilize Google quite as much.
Fantastic. Sound advice. Okay, well, we are at the end of our hour. So I want to extend a very huge thank you to our panelists. And again, those audience members out there, great interaction on the chat. Very much appreciate everybody's creative ideas. We will be capturing the chat so that we can consider those things for future projects. If anybody is interested in engaging with the Utah Recycling Alliance in any way, you can email me, and I'm going to throw my email in the chat right now. And if there's any circular economy nerds out there, also feel free to email me, because that's some of the projects I'm working on with my day job. So thank you everybody for your time. I hope you enjoyed our Trash Talk series from the Utah Recycling Alliance. And thank you to our partners at Clever Octopus, Salt Palace, and Salt Lake City Sustainable Fashion, Community College Sustainable Fashion, and of course just Amy in general, because she's awesome. And I owe her a debt of gratitude because I have a green and orange suit to wear all the time, which I love to do. Thank you everyone, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Chance. And everyone.
Thanks.
Did you want us to stick around for anything, Chance?
Yeah, just for a moment, I'm just pulling the people that are still in the room.
There's
Ask me
always
to
one
report
more
these
thing
people.
with you.
I don't want to, there's always one more thing. I don't want to report people for me removing them. I just want them to depart. No, I just want to say thank you, and generally get your feedback, and if you enjoyed it, if you had fun, and anything we can do to improve these things as we go. But I thought this was really good.
Amy,
Yeah,
I want to
thumbs
know
up,
how to
everybody
find
agrees?
out about your classes, because once we're liberated from this work from home world, I would love to come take a class.
I'm kind of thinking the same.
Yeah.
I just want to get a Clever Octopus.
Okay. I also sent the pictures of the jacket to Margot, who's in charge of our reuse market, because I would love to have like all of your one-off demos and samples and whatever's that you're just like, I don't need all of these pieces anymore, because I'm sure that they're all upcycled things to end up in our reuse market. So hopefully Margot gets to reach out to you about